When I trained as a teacher in the early 1990s, Johann Heinrich Pestalozzi got no mention on my course. And the many friends I have, who've trained at different times over the years as teachers, also heard no mention of Pestalozzi during their teacher training. More recently, I've asked teachers internationally if they know about Pestalozzi, and still very few of them do. Outside Switzerland, where Pestalozzi lived and worked, and Germany, German is Pestalozzi's mother tongue, he seems to be little known in the field of education. There is no Pestalozzi method of education that is known about worldwide. So, which are the movements that are widely known in the field of education? The kindergarten system, the Scout Association, the progressive movement in the US, Steiner or Waldorf education, Montessori schools, Atlantic College, Outward Bound, and the Duke of Edinburgh Award Scheme. But all of these movements have one thing in common. This man, Johann Heinrich Pestalozzi. Despite not being very well known worldwide, he is considered, by those in the field of education who know about him, to be the father of modern education. He had massive influence over the movements and philosophies of education named in the last slide. And Pestalozzi's approach is integral to the Western system of education. There's too little time to describe all the ways in which the movements and philosophies which I have mentioned show Pestalozzi's influence. So I shall now pick out just some of the ways in which each was influenced by him. So in each of the following slides, I have listed the key features of the concerned educationalists' beliefs and will relate these to the beliefs of Pestalozzi which influenced them. Froebel. Froebel spent more than a year with Pestalozzi at his Institute of Education, Yverdo, and came into teaching via a school which was run on Pestalozzi's principles. Of all the famous educators, his work shows the clearest influence of Pestalozzi. Kindergartens are, of course, nurseries where children below the age of compulsory education play and learn. Kindergarten education has spread throughout the world. Pestalozzi said that home is the great school of character and citizenship, and that the mother is the best educator. Pestalozzi also argued that the boredom of a child is usually the fault of their teacher, and that how is more important than what is taught. Pestalozzi spoke of learning by doing, believing that a child has innate powers which can be developed through active participation in an all-round head, heart and hands education, involving learning through all the senses. And Pestalozzi disapproved of over-reliance on books and theoretical learning. He'd introduced the use of real objects in learning, from which Froebel developed educational toys such as geometric building blocks. Baden-Powell. In 2021, Scouting and Guiding together has over 54 million members in 216 countries. Pestalozzi believed that outdoor activity makes children stronger, healthier and happier, and that it helps to develop their moral qualities. Pestalozzi's head, heart and hand education is intended to develop people physically, mentally and spiritually in order that they can help themselves and those in the social circles they live and work in, This is a key aim of a Pestalozzi education. Dewey. The progressive movement in education believes that education must be based on the fact that humans are social animals who learn best in real-life activities with other people. Arguably, Dewey made the most significant contribution to the development of education in the 20th century, just as Pestalozzi had in the 18th to 19th centuries. Pestalozzi had taught that we learn by example and through social interaction. He believed that without the development of social skills, a person, however well educated in other areas, is incapable of putting his or her education to useful effect. Pestalozzi aimed to provide a good education for all, especially for people who were usually excluded from a good education, which included, at his time, the poor, girls, and the disabled, for all of whom he set up schools. Steiner. As of 2021, there are over 1,300 Steiner Waldorf schools and 2,000 early childhood centres in over 60 countries worldwide. Pestalozzi had encouraged an integrated approach to subject matter, combining, for example, general knowledge and language, or natural science and drawing, and involving the head, the heart, and the hands at every stage. Pestalozzi believed that education should result in free-thinking, moral individuals who are able to function well in whatever social circumstances they find themselves in. Another key aim of a Pestalozzi education. Montessori. The Montessori method of education is primarily for preschool and elementary school children and is internationally recognized. As of 2021, there are 20,000 Montessori schools worldwide, with over 5,000 of these in the US. There are many Montessori schools in the UK, Germany, and Australia, and Montessori spent 10 years of her life in India, where there are also Montessori schools. Children, Pestalozzi believed, should have as much freedom as possible in learning, each being given the time he or she needs and being taught only when ready and motivated, thus taking learning into their own hands. He also believed that children should not have to sit still all day, that they naturally need movement, and that they learn best if they can move around, and that we learn by doing. Hahn. The United World College of the Atlantic was the first of the United World Colleges. These aim to further peace and international understanding by enabling students to become positive agents of change through action, example, and a sense of responsibility. As of 2021, there are 18 schools and colleges in 4 continents, providing a challenging and transformational international baccalaureate education to over 10,500 students a year. There are colleges in 4 continents, and each college is in a different country, typically having between 200 and 300 students from about 90 different countries. Outward Bound aims to foster the personal growth and social skills of participants by using challenging expeditions in the outdoors. As of 2021, Outward Bound is active in over 250 locations in more than 30 countries and has around 150,000 participants every year. The Duke of Edinburgh Award Scheme is a personal achievement award for 14 to 25-year-olds for their participation and progress in a service, a skill, physical recreation, and an expedition. As of 2021, the Duke of Edinburgh Award Scheme operates in more than 130 countries with at least 295,500 young people starting a Duke of Edinburgh programme every year. According to Pestalozzi, everybody is born good. The aim of education is to overcome the degradation of society by producing individuals who are independent and able to recognise and act on the truth. According to Pestalozzi, children tend to do right if they are shown love, kindness, and understanding. He avoided giving punishment. If punishment was absolutely necessary, it was made to fit the crime, and the reason for it was always fully explained to the children. Johann Heinrich Pestalozzi was the first Western educational philosopher to put theory into practice, and the philosophers just explored followed in his footsteps. Where there had been either no schooling for the poor or schooling not worth the name, Pestalozzi provided education for the poor, and his innovations rapidly spread throughout Europe and America, not only through the individuals and their movements already discussed, but also entering mainstream education. Most of what we see as important in our mainstream education systems originated with Pestalozzi. At a time when the education system is failing, so many with financial restraints and a restricted idea of success dominating our curricula, and tending to exclude much of what is of value in Pestalozzi's approach, such as a curriculum tailored to the needs of each individual, the relevance of Pestalozzi's approach is clear. I find it difficult to pick out particular aspects of Pestalozzi's approach to highlight for being of relevance today, since to me everything about his approach seems to be relevant. However, I have picked 5 aspects to consider before ending. Pestalozzi was concerned with social justice and was committed to helping those who had suffered within society and who were excluded in any way: the poor, the disabled, girls. He saw education as central to the improvement of social conditions. An education which helps achieve social justice is as necessary today as it was in Pestalozzi's time. Today, emotional intelligence is beginning to be seen as a more accurate means to measure the likely success of an individual than IQ. Emotional intelligence involves an ability to handle one's own and others' emotions, and a lack of it is seen to be the cause for the depression and violence which is leading to the disintegration of relationships and of modern societies. It is recognized in an education for emotional intelligence, just as it was recognized by Pestalozzi, that education should be led by the heart, love, that only the example of loving care leads to loving and caring individuals, able to change their lives, their relationships, and so society for the better. As I have just said, Pestalozzi taught that if we're treated with love and respect, we will show love and respect to others. He spoke of this not only in connection with our relationship with other humans, but also with the natural world, animate and inanimate. This is very relevant when one considers the crisis of global warming caused by humankind's lack of respect for the natural world. Pestalozzi believed that to overcome inequality, school should combine education with work. Following his example, schools become places where children learn not only academic subjects, but also skills that they can use to help finance their own learning and ultimately to help them earn a living. Thus, helping people to help themselves, which Pestalozzi considered to be one of the most important purposes of education. Pestalozzi didn't like the way in which children were encouraged to make judgments and have opinions about things before they knew all sides to an argument, believing that this led to ignorance and to people blindly and thoughtlessly following others. For Pestalozzi, one of the most important purposes of education is to ensure that each individual is taught to reserve judgment until he or she knows all sides of an argument, to be able to judge for himself or herself, and so gain independence of character rather than blindly follow others in ignorance. In this way, people can become able to recognize the truth and live according to the truth. Only then, Pestalozzi went on to argue, can true liberty and true democracy come about. I shall end with a poem to illustrate Pestalozzi's thinking. It's by the American John Godfrey Sachs, and it's based on a concept said to have originated from an ancient Jain parable, which Mahatma Gandhi, another innovative thinker of course, who, like Pestalozzi, strove for equality and peace, used to illustrate his ideas about different religions' differing, but equally valid understanding of God. The Blind Men and the Elephant. It was 6 men of Hindustan, to learning much inclined, who went to see the elephant, though all of them were blind, that each by observation might satisfy the mind. The first approached the elephant, and happening to fall against his broad and sturdy side, at once began to bawl, "Bless me, it seems the elephant is very like a wall." The second, feeling of his tusk, cried, "Ho! what have we here, so very round and smooth and sharp? To me 'tis mighty clear. This wonder of an elephant is very like a spear." The third approached the animal, and happening to take the squirming trunk within his hands, then boldly up and spake, "I see," quoth he, "the elephant is very like a snake." The fourth reached out an eager hand, and felt about the knee. "What most this wondrous beast is like is mighty plain," quoth he, "'tis clear enough the elephant is very like a tree." The fifth, who chanced to touch the ear, said, "E'en the blindest man can tell what this resembles most, deny the fact who can. This marvel of an elephant is very like a fan." The sixth no sooner had begun about the beast to grope, than seizing on the swinging tail that fell within his scope, "I see," quoth he, "the elephant is very like a rope." And so these men of Hindustan disputed loud and long, each in his own opinion exceeding stiff and strong, though each was partly in the right, and all were in the wrong. So oft in theologic wars the disputants, I ween, rail on in utter ignorance of what each other mean, and prate about an elephant not one of them has seen. A non-judgmental attitude, such as Pestalozzi advocated, is exactly what we need, I think, to understand each other and to live peacefully in this rapidly changing world of conflict between ideologies, peoples, and nations.